Welcome back, ladies and gents, to the Overwatch Open. It's time for Map 2, which will be King's Row between Anox and Rogue. And Anox up-and-comers, doing quite well so far, continuing the trend of dominance on Route 66 at least.
Yeah, this is a little bit of the story of... It's hard to call them the underdog. Basically, after this event, we can't call them the underdog anymore. Anox were created, they were quote-unquote up-and-coming, but they had tremendously skilled individual players on the team, and we were like, uh-oh, they might be coming for you. But then knocking out Reunited, they're now 1-0 up against Rogue. Both of these guys are teams that have won plenty of Premier Overwatch titles during the beta and have come out very strong in game release as well. So Anox, if they're able to defeat both of them, we need to be looking at them seriously as contenders for like one of the best teams in Europe. This is incredible stuff coming out from them right now.
And that's always the fun thing, isn't it? You have lineups with loads of individual skill, and it's like, well, all-star lineups never tend to work, but these guys have actually found a way to actually work together. And I actually heard from a lot of people in like a month or two ago that team play was always the issue with some of the Russian teams or some of the CIS teams from the CIS region, that their communication was a bit shaky. But right now, it does look like they found some great combos of, as you mentioned, the Anox and Cypher dimension to the team is really, really awesome to see how effective that is.
They straight up haven't really put a foot wrong. They've lost a couple of team fights, but the team fights that they lost were ones where Rogue were coming in, Anox were coming in, and it was like, well, yeah, they've just about won this team fight. Neither team really made a big mistake. That's fair enough. But the consistency and the level of their teamwork has really impressed me so far.
And we are moving to King's Row, so it'll be very interesting to see how Anox are going to be faring on that one against Rogue. We saw some cool switches yesterday, situational switches like Pharah, for example, a hero that has not been seen, having any prevalence recently since the last patch.
Yeah,
there are still spots.
I mean, also 80% of the kind of cool hero switches we saw yesterday more or less all came from Seagull. So I suspect we'll be seeing a lot more of that on NA, bring back Junkrat and all that. You're right, though. Like, there are still situational uses for a lot of these heroes. Pharah can still be very powerful, especially on the middle portion of the map, winding through the streets of King's Row. Potentially on the last point as well, going through and disrupting from behind. But you then have to think about the inclusion of some of the more powerful heroes in this meta. Soldier 76, for example, has just been used, but it's very, very difficult to justify a Soldier 76 pick if you're using Zenji combination. It just happens to be that a lot of the heroes that are currently powerful in this meta are very not Soldier 76 friendly, so that is part of the reason why he's not getting played. So it was interesting for Tvik to do that. I don't feel like it paid off for them as much as it should have on Route 66. I'll be curious to see what their picks are going to be here.
And I was going to say, but that's more or less going into my next question, which would be, so how are Rogue going to play this match, do you think? From what you've seen in the past, what kind of style do you think they're going to be using here? Will they go to the Zenji combo?
They have to go to the Zenji combo. Rogue are extremely strong, but I would say in the last month or so, they've also been somewhat inconsistent. So we're looking for Tvik to really maybe pick up the team a little bit on Zenji, do a little bit of the ciphering that we saw from Anox yesterday. But Tvik is one of the best DPS players in the game. Him and Mendo, who we haven't actually seen around lately, but also incredibly strong. I'm looking for the individual contributions from players like them to take Rogue over the top. I do think they are capable of taking the map off Anox, but first map there, Route 66, winning by several minutes. That was a massive statement of intent.
That was beautiful to see. And the first point here is always interesting here for me, especially from all the matches that we've seen. We've seen a very well, we're not really seeing teams trying to spread out, try to use the flanks too much. Everybody's trying to stick together on that attack, moving to the statue behind the Reinhardt, maybe splitting off into the house, seeing if they can get a pick, then coming back and just kind of seeing how things are actually going in that sense before committing onto the point. And everyone is just sticking together. I mean, this is how things are going. As you mentioned, that's by and large the Zenji dynamic as well, just getting in there, not really thinking about the flanks too much. Do you think, is there any reason to see any difference here from the selections that you see?
Well, Tvik's actually gone for Reaper to start things off, so he isn't going to be playing Genji. He's also a very, very potent Reaper, but a lot of it's going to depend on how much he actually gets the flank on the opposing team. So we'll keep an eye on what that happens, because Cypher is going to be able to come in and clean up off the back of Anox, who once again is on Winston. A very quick initial engage coming out from Anox here, and they're successfully moving back, though. I like that Rogue are moving back as a team, trying to consolidate, and then coming back and looking for pickoffs.
Yeah, no messing around there. Straight in with the Winston barrier, and actually it's paying off massively, because that's going to get Anox into the best positions possible. Really just all sitting on the point, forcing Rogue into awkward positions to try to engage from, and they easily take the first point. Will secure the payload in Very, very, very quick time indeed. That's scary if you are Rogue.
Yeah, that was basically a 40-second take for the payload on King's Row, and that's not good at all. Tavik basically was banking on doing a lot of damage by being sneaky, and what Anox did instead was decide to come in full in the face. Of course, Reaper at his most potent when you can actually go in the back line, so perhaps not going nearly as well as he otherwise would have hoped. And now we have to go into the second stage with Rogue knowing that, frankly, they're just quite behind in this situation.
And they're pretty much giving up the winding streets as you described them. All that said, they are coming back in there. We can see Reinforced moving in, and that's very important. And once again, Anox, can he be the guy that just sets everybody up for his team as he moves in with the barrier on Winston? And again, look how much space is being created for Anox to work with. They're all over the place here, but Rogue have a nice concerted effort to go for the defense here. They're picking up a couple of the kills there, thanks to Unco and the Zarya in wins, and things aren't looking too shabby now, finally. And payload will be stopped for the time being. So very big win here after that very fast take from Anox.
So big difference between the first fight and the second fight. You saw Anox coming in on Winston, initiating, leaping on in. The difference was, on the first point, there was nowhere for Rogue to move back into. They more or less had their backs against the wall, because the further they move back, the more they cede the point. Here on the winding street, different story. Anox jumps in, Rogue move back. They have plenty of space to work with. After they pick off Winston, they can then move forward, and Anox have one less tank to work with, and Rogue was significantly more comfortable with that fight. So this is going much, much better for Rogue now.
And for Anox, you can see they're taking their time at the moment, trying to slowly creep down to see if they can get a better engagement. You can see Reinforced there with the shield up. And once again, another engagement from Anox. Are we going to see the same kind of response here? Just falling back, picking him off. Looks like he's going to go down very, very quickly indeed. And that's going to leave, again, Anox without that second tank. So problems here for Anox once again.
Yeah, and this is a good example of map geography making their plan just a little bit more difficult, and Rogue are suddenly feeling a lot more confident about having this push forward. And at the moment, I have to say, I haven't seen actually Cooler anywhere. Okay, there he is, moving into the front of the screen now. I thought he might have considered popping the ultimate just before. No harm done, though. There are now 6 ultimates available on the side of Anox, 5 available on the side of Rogue. If we have a massive team fight here, look for the placement of Graviton Surges. That's going to dictate an awful lot.
Absolutely, and there it is. Absolute madness at the moment. Gravitons everywhere. Everyone popping their ults from both sides pretty much. It's actually, that said, there's still 3 available on Rogue, so depending on how this fight goes for them, they still have a lot of staying power, but it's going to be about Anox right now. They're getting multiple kills, and 2 of those heroes who did have ultimates up, they're going to go down straight away. So Anox's push seems to be winning the day here. Yeah,
the big swing there was actually Reinforce and Wins. The 2 tanks for Rogue going down in the middle of that fracas meant they were the only casualties, I should say, moving into the next phase of the push, and that meant that Anox were able to really go in full force with their DPS heroes there.
So now things do get a little bit awkward here for Rogue, although again, they do have those ultimates to fall back upon. Winston is very far away from having another Graviton Surge, and once again, he engaged the initiation coming in from Anox, and you can see Cypher getting disabled straight away with, I think, a flashbang. Very nicely done. That's a very important kill to get. And now Cooler, Lucio, the support of Anox is being pressured off the payload as well, and it's all going to fall apart there for Anox in that attack. And Rogue didn't expend too much in the way of ultimates or anything, so they're going to be feeling good about that one, I think.
Yep, they've done all right. The reason Anox wasn't able to push all the way was because they didn't actually cripple Rogue or anything like that. The picks they happened to get were the tanks in that previous engagement. Tavik now looking for an opportunity to flank. He falls down from the top. Here comes Genji as well, and we have Sound Barrier being activated from Rogue to avoid any of that fate. Cypher not able to get the kills as a result, and Tavik in the meantime manages to find kills on Anox. He's now moving on in. No one's actually targeting him at the moment, and he's got Death also available. He has to be very careful here, forcing the Transcendence from Anox. This is a very good engagement from Rogue so far.
Yeah, Anox not done just yet, though. You can see Tavik will get pushed back a little bit with that Reaper of his. And we're getting very smart back and forth play from both teams, trying to be cognizant of those very important ultimates coming up. Speaking of which, we've got another Graviton Surge going in there from Rogue. That's big damage done. And it's going to be 4 kills. No response there coming in from Anox. Beautiful Graviton Surge from Wins.
Oh, and that was actually pretty crucial as well. Oh, no! Cypher, that was so close to being so good. Cypher wanted to go all the way back to the spawn so that when everyone spawned, he'd be there with them. Unfortunately, he died just before he got there, so now we've ended up with staggered death syndrome, where the rest of the team are going to have to wait 10-20 seconds for Cypher to actually catch up with them. A little bit unfortunate for Anox, but they will be able to reload. 3 minutes and 25 seconds left to go to take this final point.
And look how brutal it is right now for Alex. Just going in like savages at the moment as we get the action beginning again, and it's all working out here for the Rogue side to get 3 kills. Not really much of a response there for Anox. They can't seem to break this, and I love the Lucio push there from the Reinhardt, just trying to chase down and once again, as you mentioned, just stagger the respawns there.
And this is the 3rd time, I think, we've seen players from Anox move out of the tunnel on King's Road and get killed off one by one. It means that each time they regroup to come back in to try for a big team fight, it just takes them 10-20 seconds longer than usual. And now Anox, they're looking for the chaos, they're looking for the individual skill to shine through. AKM in the back though, maybe Transcendence masking a little bit, manages to get a kill off on Cooler, and that is a big pick-off to start things off with, because Sound Barrier is available for one side but not the other, so we'll see if this works in Anox's favor.
Yeah, the Graviton Surge that came in there from Anox didn't do too much damage, but it did hold everybody back, which has pushed the payload forward, but they need the frags right now, and they have a lot of space to work with. The Deadeye coming in isn't going to do anything here. We have a couple players maybe available, waiting for the perfect timing, not really being able to pull off much more than one, but that might be just enough as the numbers advantage is there for Anox as they push it all the way. Is there anything to respond with here? Absolutely not. Rogue will eventually get taken down, but they did a good job actually slowing down Anox greatly.
Yeah, they slowed down there quite a bit. I'm a little bit surprised how quickly Anox were able to complete the final push. I believe we'll get pending confirmation on our screen in just a second that was approximately 6:51. So we'll be checking that out. That is a respectable time without being earth-shattering. I think the momentum there was crucially broken for Rogue in the middle part of that map. You can see each time Anox moved in with Winston to start things off with, Rogue were able to pick him off and then move back. Cypher, as a result, wasn't quite as effective as we wanted him to be, and Rogue successfully stalled for a long time.
Yeah, some great plays from Wins there with some of the Graviton Surges, and generally there's always going to be a lot of pressure on you as a Zarya player to deliver, because there's so much you can do, so much that Zarya can get done, a lot of value in Zarya play.
Yep.
And how do your expectations fall now moving into the second half?
I think a lot of that came down to a couple of individual engagements. I thought that Rogue could have stalled that for a lot longer if, at the second checkpoint, crucially, when all the ultimates popped at once in that big team fight, Reinforce and Wins weren't the two that went down for Rogue. I thought that was a little bit unfortunate. So, I don't know. I feel like they could have held out a little bit more. I think they'll be slightly annoyed that the time was so quick from Anox, but I think they'll have the confidence there. I don't think this is going to make them think, oh goodness, we've lost this, or anything like that.
See the time to beat 6:54, and
oh, Anak.
I'm wondering about these picks.
Oh, Anak.
We've got like 3 tanks there on the, or we had 3 tanks on there on the side of Rogue as well. But there we go. There we go.
Come on, Bastion. Come on, Bastion. I am temporarily rooting for Anox here. This is going to be pretty amazing if we actually get a team wipe. Start things off with Bastion. Not something you see every day on competitive play, and certainly not on King's Row, as Anox are now trying to defend against the onslaught of Rogue. Don't forget, for this entire time, I believe Anak, he's patiently waiting in the back there, so they're effectively playing 6v5. Bastion isn't doing any damage. He wants to surprise them when they get onto the point. Here comes Reinforce, slowly getting into Anak's point of view, and now the Bastion is revealed.
Yeah, they know, and he's getting picked away at, or heal himself up a little bit there, but some good damage done. Some timely damage done on Diva, making his way up there from Nox, and that's going to be very important. So let's see if they can actually disable the Bastion, or if he's actually going to get some damage done here. Still in the same position, not repositioning at all. It's a pretty strong position.
Well, it's tricky. I mean, there is no Lucio available, remember, at the moment for Rogue. They've got Unko on Ana, and they have Wins on Zenyatta. In the meantime, we have Rubicon on Zenyatta, rather, and Cypher on Genji there on the side of Anox. So they're not sacrificing those heroes in particular, but they are doing with one less tank. Nox at the moment with the defensive matrix is a great initiator for Rogue. They just need to find a way in.
And it's such a sheer and acute angle there on the Bastion that it's going to be difficult to deal with. Have to see if they can find a way to get the burst damage in there as they go for the push. And we get all the kills happening in here now for the Rogue side as they manage to break the defense that Bastion has been depositioned and fragged. No more Anox. He will switch back to the classic Winston that we've been seeing him on. It looks like this first point, this payload will be secured by the Rogue side.
It's only ever situational for the first point. I thought it was a little bit ambitious to do that, but bear in mind, we more or less had a 40-second take, right? When we actually saw Anox move forward here. So Rogue are a full minute behind Anox as things currently stand. They have 6 minutes and 54 seconds to complete the map, as you guys can see on your screen now. And for anyone wondering what the time currently is, we are now at 2 minutes exactly.
Yeah, you're right. It did take them a while to figure out how to deal with that, and that may have had a lot of value. So here goes the push, and you can see that Anox are much more confident about going in here as opposed to their opponents were in that situation in the first half. Cypher just diving straight in there, all the shields going down. We get the Transcendence coming in from Anox as well to make this push work out. Now Cypher's going to put up the Dragon Blade, the sound barrier on him as well. He's got free reign to do whatever he wants there, going deep in with the blade, and he's getting a lot of slicing done. And he's going to find himself in a position to flank as well and cause additional issues. This is going to kill a lot of time here for Rogue.
Yeah, very, very good. Basically, that was timed from Cypher based on when Transcendence was used. He was going, when are we likely to have higher hit points on the opposing? That's fine. I'm going to get into position to try and take these guys out with my ultimate 2 to 3 seconds from now. And he was very patient and when he needed to use that, but when he did, he got an instant triple kill on Rogue. So very well played. And right now, Rogue are in a lot of trouble.
They certainly are. That payload is only just now being moved back by them. And Anox, they don't actually have much in the way of ultimates going on right now, so it's going to be tough to get some money engagements. We'll have to see if they can find a way anyway, or at least just find a way to build a lot of charge before that payload reaches a deeper spot. And looks like they might be able to do that. We've got some damage coming in here or there. But Rogue are making ground. But it's pretty, I mean, there's really more or less not much else that Anox can really do here.
Well, Anox have actually moved back a fair bit, which is interesting. Because not delaying this is actually giving Rogue a good opportunity to take the map back and potentially go to a 1-1 situation. 3 minutes and 40 seconds, by the way, as things currently stand. So if Rogue win this fight and they're able to move on in, then they will be in a position where they'll effectively have just over 3 minutes to complete the final point. Not the world's greatest amount of time, but also quite comfortable.
And it's looking like they're getting close right now. They're going to be able to make it all the way, it would appear, and Anox will have to deal with another 3-minute defense to see if they can pull that one off. They do have a couple ultimates at the very least, so that's more than they had to work with previously.
So Anox, I'm looking at Anox and the Winston engagements here. When is he going to be jumping in to try and disrupt Rogue? He's looking to see when a Rogue looking to start the team fight. There we go. He moves in straight away. Rubicon with the Transcendence off the back of that. Mackenzie going down very, very quickly indeed. And Cypher actually joining him. That's not good. That's a lot of DPS that are going to be disappearing on the side of Anox here too, going down for Rogue. But they're holding strong at the moment. It's 4v4. It's still anybody's fight. But the loss of Cypher and Kenzie meant significantly less DPS. And it looks like Anox are having to move back at this moment in time. Rogue successfully hold for a little longer.
Yeah, looking very scary right now. A lot of ultimates popped in that situation. Cypher's still got his one up though, and Kula does have himself a sound barrier to work with to try to get Cypher in there with some additional help to make some fragging happen, and they desperately need it at the moment because the payload is being pushed forwards.
That was interesting. I did say Rogue successfully held, and that's because they managed to keep a lot of their people alive. But note that they actually moved back almost out of the tunnel to regroup. So I'm actually starting to like this more and more. What they did was they wanted to make sure that Reinforce had the Reinhardt shields available. Cypher coming in with a massive deflect, followed by a Dragon Blade. He's looking for Tavi. Can he move in and get it? He gets AKM and Reinforce, but not Tavi just yet. He gets taken out by Unko in the meantime. It's currently 4v4, and quite a lot of damage is done. And again, Rogue backing up just a little bit, making sure everyone who's alive doesn't take additional damage so that there's no trickling.
And you can really see how important Kenzie is, especially when Cypher goes in. Cypher is playing with a lot of variance in those situations, couldn't just quite get off that last shot on the Dragon Blade to get the finishing blows on a couple of players. And meanwhile, Kenzie's got to make the frags. We get the Lucio boost in there, pushing Reinforce, pushing the Zarya here for Rogue to get them in the mix. And a lot of players here from Anox are able to respond, still holding their formation actually to be able to defend here. And in fact, they'll get 3 kills as they isolate those attacking players of Rogue who are trying to break the lines, but instead they will be broken, they will be pushed back to spawn.
And that, okay, I think that actually is the fight that has made Rogue go, uh-oh, we're in serious trouble. Now, we're up to 6 minutes and 15 seconds. They need a massive team wipe right now, followed by the payload moving all the way in. They cannot afford to wait any longer. They've got 30 seconds now to complete the point. It is going around the final leg. It's actually possible for this to happen. Rubicon goes down to start things off, which is pretty good. Unko now using Transcendence of his own to give the team a little bit more longevity, but Wins goes down. He's a very crucial support. And I think Rogue, oh, they're trying so hard right now. Are they going to be able to defend from the 6 minutes, 44 seconds? We have 10 seconds left to go.
Yeah, it's looking good right now here for Anox, that is for sure. And very well done by Anox to actually isolate the Reinhardt and reinforce and then push back onto all the squishies and just take them out, leaving that start with nothing to do.
That's it, GG. And we are unable to complete the map. They're still fighting on there, but we have passed the 7-minute mark now, and this is basically playing for pride. At this point, Anox will take out Rogue after taking out Reunited, and they will be advancing to the grand finals of the European section of this qualifier.
Anox, they have been impressing people, they've been turning some heads. However, I'm sure there were a lot of people that always believed with the pedigree, the Quake pedigree that they have.
Quake pedigree. I wonder who those believers were, where they are today. Not immediately clear, but they're very, very well played there. And I am very, very impressed indeed. But right now, I think Anox, I don't feel like there's any individual department where they have outshone Rogue. I just feel like they've gelled that little bit better. And Rogue definitely looked a lot better on map 2 than on map 1. Yeah, that much is for sure. I don't think... I think they were just a little bit too slow. Both teams pushed to the end just fine.
And it's a little bit sad as well that, I mean, that they lost the first point so incredibly quickly. I mean, that was the difference, really, I would say.
Yes, because it was 40 seconds versus more or less a minute 45 there. Bastion, a little bit of a surprise for Rogue, and I thought they dealt with him okay. The first team wipe wasn't down to Bastion actually taking all of the kills. A couple more of the players went down there as well, but as soon as they reacted to that, Anak had to move back off onto his Winston, and I thought that made the difference in the latter stages of the map, where Anak very, very correctly jumped on in with Winston to start a couple of engagements off. You would argue a second or two before Rogue were preparing to start their fights, and they were kind of in a position where they were a little bit more panicked, a little bit less time to know what to do, and Anox just felt like they worked better as a unit.
So a couple of observations I want to throw your way, guys. Yes, I've just mythologically appeared again. We need to I'm just going to fade in like, hi, I've been standing here the whole time. No, basically, sitting backstage watching that game, you actually made a couple of observations, John, on that first one, on Route 66. You made the observation that they were playing, I want to get this right, it was double DPS, triple support, because you had that Ana as well. And, of course, reinforce on Reinhardt. Now, this was something that Rogue went for. You said there was some merit to it. It didn't end up working out for them in the end, but is that something you've seen before? I mean, it's not often you see triple support. Sometimes, I mean, it feels like we fall into this kind of Lucio Zenyatta meta.
Well, the problem with it isn't so much a problem with that as how good the off tanks are in Overwatch at the moment. Depending on the situation, Roadhog can often be a good choice. I'm looking more towards Zarya of just being incredibly solid and being able to lend a hand to her teammates as well in most situations, especially on payload where you know you have to be putting yourself in harm's way and initiating the fights that way. So when you go for the triple support and you're reliant on a single tank in the team, it does make things just that little bit more pivoted. Yes, your DPS players will have a bit more room to roam. Yes, you know that they have a little bit more longevity because there are people healing them and buffing them, but if that single pillar goes down, your team could be in trouble.
And while we're in the vein of tanks and their presence as we move into King's Row, Dan, and actually the attackers, Anox, found success without a Reinhardt. Now, that's not something we see so often. Is this where we just start giving credit to the Winston? Is that just where we start hailing all praise towards the Holy Monkey?
We did see Anak doing great work on Route 66. Obviously, he's very proficient at his job with Winston, because also he has to just give opportunities to players like Cypher to get in there with the distraction and the initiations. But there, I mean, I think you made the point in that initially they were able to deal better with Anik the second time around on the second kind of the winding road, the second part in the middle of the map, because they were able to say, okay, we can fall back here and then re-engage once we picked off the tank in the forward position. That dynamic's much harder to manage, I think, initially, and on the first point when you're trying to take the payload, due to the fact that if you fall back, you kind of give up the payload.
Sure.
So they kind of have to contest, and we could see them just moving out of position. So that approach seemed to work quite well against the setup that was being played.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point as well. I think everything happened so quickly there that we maybe didn't get to touch on this. But a lot of the time on King's Row, when you see an attacking team not pick a Reinhardt, that's usually a bit of a clue to say, we are looking to take the capture point with the very first engagement. That is when you start to see the likes of Winston's go in and disrupt. That's where you see just that extra DPS player because they want to wipe the team in one go.
I had a similar thought. And the thing that was most impressive was they kept that Winston throughout almost the majority of it. I think we may have seen Reinhardt crop up towards the very closing moments, but it was they were very kind of... what's the word, stubborn in their tank choices. They chose to not go Reinhardt, and it worked. So big credit where it is due to Anox, and they've picked up the win here in our first semi-final of the day. And what a route it has been. I mean, you walk through number 3 seed in the world, you have first Reunited, then following number 7 seed Rogue, of course, winning the previous local event as well. Offline. I just had dinner. It's coming back up. Do excuse me. But the first semi-final is done and dusted, and it's been a pleasure to bring it to you. Our second game promises to be nothing short of exceptional. We get to see Creation for the first time on stream alongside Misfits, who you'll be no stranger to. So we'll bring you a second semi-final in just a moment. We're taking a quick break. When we do come back, it'll be semi-final 2 to see who will join Anox in the final.